Hey guys! I almost knocked it over.
This video's sponsored!
Woo! Hey guys, welcome to Film Learning, the show dedicated to learn you some filmmaking and learn you good. And today on the show, we're doing something a little different. We're actually going to be talking about some filmmaking gear. I know, right?
My God.
Thank you, Lawrence. Now guys, today we're going to be reviewing the 400S wireless transmission system from Hollyland. Now essentially what this thing does is send exactly what you see on the back screen of your camera to a field monitor wirelessly, and it covers a really big distance. You can actually see on the box here it says 400 feet. Now I was ripped around and ready to go to test this system. I plugged it into my GH4 and it didn't work. Now this isn't actually a problem with the Mars 400S at all, it's actually an issue with the GH4, which I've now learned from going on YouTube that it has a very temperamental HDMI output, which you need to operate the Mars 400S. So, review over, right? And now, Hollyland was nice enough to send me the Mars 400S to test out and review, so we're gonna do it. And luckily for me, my friend Cam Shand, who is also a YouTuber, lives about 2 minutes down the road, and he has a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema 4K camera, which this thing actually works on very well. So I thought what we'd do is jump out of my studio, jump to his studio, and do the review there. So let's go. Okay guys, so we're here in Cam's studio, and we've actually got the Pocket Cinema 4K up and working, and you can see that in spite of the GH4, we have the Hollyland Mars 4S actually working. You can see on the field monitor, it is live. So before we jump into that, let's just hear from Cam and just tell us a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, thanks Grant. It's good to have someone else here in the studio. Yeah, I do tech videos every week, but to produce them on YouTube, obviously I need camera gear. So I shoot, as Grant said, on the Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, which outputs in 1080p of whatever frame rate you're shooting at over HDMI. So we're able to actually connect it up to the transmitter here of the Hollyland and send it over to this receiver, to this field monitor. So as you can see, if I move it around, wave it at maybe the big bright light, you can see that that is a pretty quick latency response of the output.
Now, as a self-shooter, I personally couldn't see a lot of use for that, because as you can see, it does take a decent amount of gear to actually get this thing up and running. And usually I use the Panasonic Image app. It's a simple way, just wirelessly connect the camera to your phone or your tablet. And as you can see, this is just a little bit more complicated, but in an actual production environment, this would be insanely handy, because with the Image app, you can connect one device at any given time. So it might be great for self-shooters, but this is a lot better because I think you can connect several of these up at any given time.
Yeah, you can have multiple devices connected to the receiver that I've seen. There also is an app that you can get that you can connect to an iPad or a phone that will also give you field monitor options. Obviously, your field monitor, you can add your false color to obviously check your exposure, your zebras for any peaking, your focus peaking. You can add extra options, and you can do that within the app itself. So with that allows whoever's reviewing it to get a few more features from that feed, as well as it's good to hand off to the client. If you're on a set and you don't want to give them any expensive gear, you just hand them an iPad and then they can just hold an iPad and see exactly what you're shooting on set.
And the good thing about the range is they can be as far away from set as humanly possible, so they're not going to be cramping your style. Now of course it wouldn't be a gear review without some sexy B-roll music and all that crap, so I'm going to cut to that right now, and it's going to be really tasteful stuff. Now let's talk a little bit about, say, the positives and negatives of the Mars 400S. And one thing right off the bat is that they're a little bit on the noisy side. Now if I cut to this audio right now, you can hear there's a decent amount of noise coming out of these things. Now, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if your mic was away from your camera, but if it's anywhere near this, it's going to pick up that sort of white noise, which it's not going to be great in post. So that is one thing to look out for. You will have to mount your mic far away from this. One other thing as well, these batteries are a nightmare to get off. And one thing right out of the box is that it doesn't actually come with the batteries. And it's not so much a bad thing when you've got these around, because if you've got an Aperture light, you have these batteries, and they're also pretty common. They're just F970s. You can get them on eBay. They cost next to nothing. But the fact that it doesn't come with the batteries is still a negative. Okay, so I've talked about the negatives, but there are quite a few positives. So I'm going to kick it over to Cam, and he's going to just rattle off a few of those.
Yeah, okay, so price-wise, excellent. They're in that prosumer level, so they're affordable to get in and start using some of this gear. There's a lot of use cases for it, so obviously you can squeeze a lot of uses out of it as long as you've got a couple of people to probably work on a set with. So as a solo shooter, you could use a wireless focus kit. So we could set the camera up, and then you could sit back here. I could move this screen around to face me, pull my focus, make sure that I'm in focus for this scene. If you didn't have autofocus, I guess that's kind of what you need, which the Pocket 4K doesn't. So if you have manual lenses or a manual cinema camera, you need to be able to rack focus. Other than that, you can also rig up the camera on a gimbal and have a separate focus puller as well. So if we rigged this camera up here, I could walk around and make sure I'm keeping the composition correct and everything is perfectly in that frame. And Grant could sit back with the focus puller and the field monitor and just pull that focus and make sure that the talent is tack sharp. So it's another great use case for this kit. And a positive that works well with the gimbal setup is that they're also pretty lightweight. So if you're using a smaller NP battery and you've got that on the side of your gimbal, then you can hold that rig. It's not going to break your back. You don't need an easy rig setup. You can kind of get away with that single man run and gun style shot.
And one thing I would also add is that they're sturdy as well. Because I could easily drop this a few times and it'd be totally fine because it's made out of metal and not cheap plastic. Oh, one other positive I will also mention that has been mentioned in a few reviews, they actually give you an extra antenna. Is with one of my other rigs, that antenna broke and I had to just buy another one. In this case, they've got an extra antenna, so even if you stuff one up, you've still got another one extra. So now, obviously, I shoot all my stuff on a tripod in a studio in a very contained environment. But what would be some of the other things that would, I suppose, expand your shooting power by using something like this?
Live streaming would probably have to be the biggest benefit that a kit like this would give you. If you were, say, running around a basketball court trying to keep up with an athlete and you need a live stream back to a capture card plugged into a laptop, chuck the transmitter on your camera, receive it back into that laptop, and now you're live streaming that event. It unlocks a lot of abilities.
Oh God, that makes me so jealous that I've just always, in my shed in my backyard with a puppet. So this might actually give me pause to get outside and actually, shoot the outdoors, although I think the natural light might actually burn me alive, but you never know.
Well, speaking of the outdoors, you could even rig it up to the DJI Smart Controller for their Mavic drones, and you could feed that drone footage live out to a RTMP Streambox as well. So you could be live streaming drone footage wherever you are, whatever you're doing.
That might actually be a possibility because I do have a Mavic in my studio.
Well, we've got to set that up.
It's my brother-in-law's, and he probably wouldn't know I'll be using it, but you guys won't tell anyone where. Now, as YouTubers, this is a little bit of a difficult thing to test. I obviously couldn't do it on my own because my camera didn't work. And you really need 3 people with this because obviously someone's got to film it, someone's got to watch on the monitor, and Cam's got a focus puller here. So realistically, if you're on, say, a short film set or any sort of set in general, you'd have a camera operator, you'd have a focus puller, you'd have someone watching on the monitor, the director, the producer, whatever.
And then your talent, someone to actually film.
Exactly. So there's 2 of us, so it's a little bit tricky, but what we thought we'd do is just sort of show you a bit of the behind the scenes and set up some basic tests to show you how the rig actually works. So we're gonna do our best, and you know, fingers crossed that we can actually demonstrate how this thing works with just two of us. So let's just cut to that. So as you can see from the footage on screen right now, we're just doing some basic tests with the Mars 400S hooked up to the field monitor. We're just moving it slowly back and forth just to test for latency. It's only when you're moving it quickly that you actually notice a difference in latency. And in this test here, Cam is using his focus puller with the Mars 400S hooked up to the field monitor in order to rack focus. And as you can see from the footage, it was really easy to rack focus. Now the last test isn't really a test at all per se. All we did was chuck the camera up on a gimbal, and then I had myself film Cam with the field monitor in view. And you can see that there's really little latency going on there as he just moved the camera around about. It doesn't really serve any purpose, it just looks kind of weird, and you've got a perfect reproduction of the Blackmagic screen on that field monitor. Now one thing during testing that Cam did point out, and I think it is important to say, is that all field monitors do have some latency. This one is rated at 10 milliseconds, which is pretty damn good, especially for its price point. You are going to get latency with any field monitor that you use, especially a wireless one. So guys, that was our review on the Mars 400S from Holyland. As you see, it's a really nice piece of kit, but it is not suited to everyone. If you've got a small crew, fantastic. If you're on a short film, also fantastic, as it's a really nice entry-level prosumer piece of kit. So one of the features we didn't actually touch on much in the review was the app that actually comes with the Mars 407S. So Cam, did you want to tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's got a really cool app feature. So you can connect a Bluetooth device to the receiver, and from that you can then bring up multiple field monitor features. So you can get like your false color, your focus peaking, any of your just exposure tools in general, as well as like your rule of thirds for composition. So there's a stack of features that you can just squeeze out of the mobile app. And this is obviously good for handing off to your director or your client for reviewing whilst you're also shooting. So it's a great feature to have in just a standard wireless transmitter kit.
Now guys, obviously our tests were pretty basic and sort of fly by the seat of our pants. Some other people have done some really great in-depth testing as well as distance testing, and I'm going to link all those down in the description and also in the card above. So feel free to check those out if you are interested. I'm sure I'll have a link for Holyland's Mars 407S down in the description, so check that out if you are interested in picking this up. And if you did enjoy this video, please smash that like button. I really do appreciate it, and it does help out. I want to thank Cam for coming over and sharing his equipment, and also for letting me partake in his studio as well. I had a great time, and I'm sure we'll do it again in the future.
For sure.
If you aren't subscribed, guys, why not just hit that subscribe button below, and also subscribe to Cam while you're at it, and also hit our notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. I've got 2 other episodes filmed right over here, and all my social media crap, so you can just check out all that for behind the scenes stuff. And as always, keep learning.